Some quilts begin with a favorite pattern, but many of my quilts begin with a feeling or a memory. The chill of autumn in the air, the glow of the stars at night, or the shifting patterns of light and color on the water. If you've ever wondered how to translate what you see and feel in nature into something you can sew, you're in the right place. Welcome. I'm Beth Ann Williams, and today I'll be sharing a trunk show of quilts inspired by the world around us, and tips for drawing inspiration from your surroundings to spark ideas for your quilting journey. Let's start with the idea that inspiration doesn't need to mean a literal interpretation or representation. After all, we have cameras for that. Inspiration can take the form of subject matter, color choices, or any other design elements. To me, this block pattern by Sharon Holland evokes palm fronds, reminding me of the trees in front of a former family home. Here's my finished table runner alongside an old photo of those trees. The trees are silhouetted against the sky, so it's a little hard to see the spiky leaves, but they're there. Quilters generations before us often chose to represent the world around them in their quilts. If you're interested in exploring traditional block quilt patterns, you can find free block patterns like these online at sites such as quiltingdaily.com. Now, please note, I haven't personally tested these patterns and instructions from Quilting Daily, so be sure to read through everything carefully. But while you're there, you might enjoy checking out the full website. There's a lot of great info. Moving on from subject matter, sometimes it can be a color palette that catches your eye and makes you want to capture that moment in fabric. A quick tip: when you're looking for color inspiration, take careful note not just of the colors or hues that you're seeing, but also of the values, the relative lightness or darkness of each color. Do you have a good mix of fabrics? Some that are relatively lighter and some that are relatively darker? That mix of contrasting values can help create depth and sparkle in a quilt. Can you see the inspiration here? I find that batik fabrics in particular often lend themselves to these kinds of natural palettes. But that doesn't mean we have to stick to batiks. I took this photo in our front yard. At first, I mainly noticed the reds and oranges of the leaves. But on closer inspection of the photo, I noticed the blue sky peeking through the leaves at the top of the photo, and the green foliage along the bottom of the photo. Try looking back at your own photos and asking yourself what unexpected colors show up when I pause and really look. This is the fabric palette that photo inspired. This time, beautiful multicolored prints from the artists of the Cafe Collective. I assembled a set of strips for each block and used a variation of Bonnie Hunter's Scrappy Trip Around the World pattern to make my quilt. Now, I know that these exuberant colors aren't everyone's cup of tea. It's a lot. But can you recognize the color palette from the photo? Of course, nature doesn't stop at ground level. Sometimes my inspiration comes from the night sky or even outer space. I've always been fascinated with photos like these from NASA, and that fascination was reflected in one of my early Bargello quilts made about 25 years ago now. And here's one of my original Celtic-style designs, inspired by the first star visible at dusk one night at my grandparents' farm in Pennsylvania. Let's head back down to earth for a moment, into the woods, where textures, shadows, and subtle color shifts can offer endless inspiration. Is there a place that is particularly special or meaningful to you? I live a short drive from the beautiful Lake Michigan shoreline, so that's another major source of inspiration for me, whether I'm making a commercial pattern like this quilt or designing my own quilted landscape. Here's a photo of my husband John at the big lake, and here's his feet peeking out from underneath one of my quilts. Can you tell where I got this color palette? Although I wasn't trying to be literal in my colors, those colors are pretty bang on, aren't they? Sometimes it just works out that way. Here's another of my water, sky, and shoreline inspired quilts, an original Celtic style design. This time, the inspiration is perhaps less obvious to the viewer, but it's more personal to me. I love this design so much, I now use a version of it for my business logo. How about this? Do you have a favorite season of the year? Let's pause for another quick tip. Avoid the matchy-matchy trap, where creativity comes to a screeching halt while you scour your fabric collection, your local quilt shop or shops, or even online stores for that perfect color match to your inspiration. Instead, try to use the hues of your inspiration as a starting point, and then consider going lighter, darker, brighter, duller when building a fabric palette for your quilt. The changing seasons here in Michigan are always a source of inspiration for me. The varied colors of fallen leaves inspired my color and fabric choices for this applique quilt. I definitely didn't play the matchy-matchy game here, especially since all the fabrics are prints, many with medium to large-scale motifs. But I like to think that I captured the warm feel of autumn in this quilt. Blowing and falling leaves were also behind this curvy improvisational piece. I wanted to use shape to create movement, while the colors of the fabric are meant to suggest that some of the falling leaves are still green. You may have seen this Bargello quilt before, which was inspired by a lovely October drive from northern Michigan back down to Grand Rapids. The beautifully softly flowing bands of color created by the changing leaves took my breath away, so naturally, I had to make a quilt. The improvisational quilt at the center of this slide was inspired by a mix of memories of southwestern Michigan and of the woods near my sister's home in western New York. I was particularly interested in the way you can see the cloudy sky peeking through the jagged branches of the trees, and I tried to represent that in my quilt. And for this quilt, which I'm showing close up so you can see the details, I was thinking about looking down at pine needles and scruffy vegetation along the sand dunes. You can see the influence not only in my fabric choices, but also in the stitching that I used to embellish the seams. Spring and summer flowers are another rich source of inspiration for me. In this case, the daylilies growing along the wall at the back of our yard. I was intrigued to notice that in addition to the oranges, yellows, and greens, there's also rusty reds and deep reddish purples, colors I hadn't consciously seen at first glance. You can recognize the colors of the daylilies in this quilt, even though the design itself is completely different. I went for a more realistic interpretation of the daylilies in this thread-painted applique. Tulips are another favorite flower of mine. I wanted to combine the graceful simplicity of the leaves from the stock photo on the right side of this slide with tulips planted by my Aunt Ada when John and I bought our house many, many years ago. So here's my little thread-painted tulip. It makes me happy every time I look at it. Now, what inspires you? It might be your backyard, a family vacation, a favorite spot, or even a memory. I hope this trunk show has given you ideas, not just for what you can make, but how you might see things a little differently. If you enjoyed the trunk show, please be sure to check out the other videos on my channel. And if you'd enjoy even more inspiration like this, plus tips, tutorials, and advance notice of upcoming classes and events, I'd love to welcome you to my weekly newsletter. It's where I share things I don't always post on YouTube, and it's the best way to stay connected. You'll find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to share in the comments what inspires you. Happy quilting!